organized by Prem Jain Memorial Trust. And thank you very much for being part of it. As you are aware, I think we've already had a few sessions earlier, not the colloquium. We started our journey with the students during the lockdown with the Living Building series that we have done.
Yeah.
A very successful series that was started during lockdown, and we had 6 talks which were given out in that Living Building series. It was all about the future of buildings and how would the buildings would change, and they'll change to a living entity. We had speakers who came from various walks of life, experts on the subject, and we had more than 300 people attending those talks. And we very successfully concluded the series by giving out the certificates to the students who are part of it. We, of course, going to begin the second round of the Living Building series from next week onwards. There'll be announcement about that happening at the end of this event. Dr. Hariharan would be doing that. And coming back to what we are here for today. First of all, a little bit on the Prem Jain Memorial Trust. I see a lot of people who have been regular and attending our events, earlier events also. So you're well aware about what the trust does, but I see some new names also amongst the list of attendees. So for their benefit, I would like to reiterate what the trust is. Dr. Prem Jain, in whose memory the trust was started, he was known as the father of the green buildings in India. He was instrumental in creating the vision of Green Bharat, wherein he said that India should be a leader in sustainability by contributing 1 square foot of green footprint to achieve a target of 1.3 billion square feet. Thereafter, we achieved the target much ahead of what he thought it will be. He thought to take up to 2015, but we achieved the target with 2012, thanks to the great leaders that we have in our green building movement in the country. And thereafter, he set a target of 10 billion square feet of green footprint to be achieved by 2022 when India turns 75. He used to very fondly talk about India's Bharat Mata, and he wanted to really see that by 75th year of independence, we do something special, and that's where the 10 billion square feet came from. In September 2018, we lost him. Thereafter, the work has been picked up by the new chairman of the Indian Green Building Council, Mr. V. Suresh, whom you had the fortune to listen to during the last session of the Living Building series that we did last week. He's also here amongst us in the attendees. I'm grateful to Mr. V. Suresh for the support that he has been giving to this event, to the events being organized by PJMT, and inspiring us by his presence. Coming back to Dr. Jain, he was a brilliant student. He was a merit lister in All India Higher Secondary School Board in 1952. He went to Banaras Engineering College to do his mechanical engineering, where he was selected for a very coveted exchange program in those days, in 1950s, where he sent into Australia for a training. When he graduated from BHU 1957, he applied for a master's program in mechanical engineering, University of Minnesota, USA, from where he completed his PhD also. In 1967, when he completed his PhD, he assisted Dr. Threlkeld in designing the air conditioning systems for many NASA buildings in John F. Kennedy Center. He also worked on NASA project of Apollo program for Neil Armstrong's first flight to moon in 1969. During this time, he also met one of the famous architects, Frank Lloyd Wright, and worked with him for the Johnson Wax building in Wisconsin. He thereafter started his professional career by working at the Dr. Willis Carrier's Research and Development Group. And you all know that Dr. Carrier is known as founder of the air conditioning in the world. He returned to India in 1970. His love for his country called him back, and where he started his, he became a visiting faculty for School of Planning and Architecture in 1973, SPA, and thereafter he started the consulting practice called Spectral Consultants, which became one of the largest consulting engineering company in India. He was first Indian to become the ASHRAE member and started the ASHRAE chapter in India. He is known as founder for the ASHRAE in India, and thereafter he wanted India to be first. He started ISHRAE, which is the Indian Society of Air Conditioning Engineer, in 1981. And today, ISHRAE is amongst the top 5 societies, the air conditioning engineering societies of the world, with about 40,000 members across the country in terms of students as well as the professionals. Dr. Jain was also the convener on section of air conditioning for NBC 2 times in 2005 and 2016, and also the approach to sustainability, the first ever chapter on sustainability written anywhere in the world in the National Building Code. He was the founder member of the IGBC and took over as chairman from 2007 to 2018. He did exceptional work. His love for the country was well known, and everybody, whoever came in touch with him, could never forget his smile. In fact, Mr. J.P. Shroff was very close to him, worked closely with him. He also mentioned that the smile that you see in the picture there of Dr. Jain was very infectious. After we lost Dr. Jain, we started this trust. His daughter, Payal Jain, took the lead, along with some of the well-wishers. And today, the trust is doing work for students, and because the Dr. Jain love was all about students. The Living Building series was part of that same thing. And we, as I said earlier, we'll continue that journey going forward. Today, we have started the new concept of Colloquium, where we get the industry experts to come and speak on a subject. We intend to organize 1 colloquium a month, and you'll keep hearing and you'll keep meeting the top of the industry minds who are who's and who in the industry. Today, our topic is the future of young Indian. This topic is very timely. It comes at a time when India is going through a lockdown. We still don't know how the future is going to turn out going forward. The industries are in distress, and the biggest distress is to the youngsters who are now coming out or are going to coming out next year time and joining the industry in various industry levels. How is the industry going to treat them? What lies in future there? So to discuss that, we have called 2 experts amongst us. The first expert that we have is Mr. Saugata Roy Chaudhary. He's Executive Director, Skills Industrial Relations from Confederation of Indian Industry. Mr. Roy Chaudhary has over 26 years of experience covering manufacturing, media, and business consulting, and he's currently the Executive Director, Skill Development, Affirmative Action, and Industrial Relations at CII. He has been with CII for over 10 years and has significantly contributed to expansion of the skill development initiatives in CII. He has led CII's skills policy recommendations on national skill policy, skill inputs to Make in India, ease of doing business, industrial policy, digital India, etc. And he has worked to support, set up and functionalize 11 sector skill councils in various areas. I don't think we can find anybody better than him to discuss the subject today. Our second panelist that we have is Mr. J.P. Shroff. He's from Pune. He's the Managing Director and Chairman of Shroff Group. He himself is a gold medalist in Bachelor of Civil Engineering from COEP, College of Engineering, Pune in 1980. He completed his MBA in 1982 and later LLB from ILS College. Wow, what a person to have amongst us. He has been awarded by various awards such as All India Achievers Award, Glory of India Award, National Award for E-Governance 2014 and 15 for skill development in construction sector, an award for outstanding contribution in role as expert for bricklaying at World Skill Competition from Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship. He is currently the chairman of IGBC Pune chapter and carrying on the green movement and the crusader of green, as we love to call him. He is truly an educationalist and extremely passionate about skilling in the construction sector. He is multi-talented, visionary, and has contributed immensely in field of construction, skilling, entrepreneurship, and sustainability. So thank you very much, Mr. Roy Chaudhary and for Mr. Shroff for joining us here in the opening session of the colloquium. This is what is going to set the pace for us going forward in future. The person who's going to be spearheading the panel discussion as part of our own trust, PJMT Trust, is none other than Dr. Hariharan. You have seen him, you've heard him during the six talk series that we had on the living buildings. He's a man who's a live wire. He's knowledgeable on everything. One can discuss with him anything to everything, and he's knowledgeable on those. He's a pioneer of green buildings. He's part of the IGBC Bangalore chapter, a man who likes to stay behind the scenes, work to make every program a success. He's a perfectionist, and he likes to go absolutely by the rule book and likes the things to be perfect. He himself has founded and built businesses that have mainstreamed the technologies and solutions for zero energy development. BCIL and Z Homes are part of his work in the past that grew to a base of over 500 crores. Today, I'm not sure he's retired. He's active. I get his mails at 5 o'clock in the morning. I can get his mails at 11 in the evening. It doesn't matter. He's a non-stop person who's always at work. So I don't think we can have anybody better than him to manage these two Dhurandhars that we have from the industry. I'm going to be talking about the subject. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of few people as I see amongst the attendees. Of course, our own Mr. V. Suresh. Thank you very much for being there. Mrs. Renu Jain and Payal Jain. Mrs. Renu Jain is the wife of Dr. Jain, and Payal is the daughter of Dr. Jain. We have amongst us Mr. Niranjan Khatri, who's ex-ITC and a waterman of India, loves to talk on water, encyclopedia on water. Padu, we had the honor of having him here amongst us as one of the master speakers for our Living Building series. Mrs. Geeta Vaidyanathan, she has been a big support to us. Sandeep Naranji, again from our IGBC fraternity. And I'm sorry if I'm missing out others because I don't have too much, I cannot scroll in that and talk parallelly. So thank you very much to all of you for being here. And let's start this session of colloquium, the opening session of this. Over to you, Dr. Hariharan. Please take over.
Namaste and thank you, Ashish. It won't be complete without my adding a few words on how, Ashish is like a son to Dr. Jain. And I keep often saying this, that, you listen to him, close your eyes, and you think you're actually listening to Dr. Jain. His intonations, JP, you used to know Dr. Jain well. Many of you out there who have known Dr. Jain will know what I'm saying. And Ashish today is the only Indian member on the World Council of ASHRAE. And he has been a president of ISRAE earlier, has been in this business of HVAC and air management for nearly 30 years now. very humble person in his ways, and most befitting that he is a member of the trust here. Ashish has something terribly urgent that he has to attend to. So for the next 15, maybe 20 minutes, I'm preempting you, Ashish, by saying that you may not be here for some time and that you will join the conversation soon enough. And good evening, all of you, ladies and gentlemen out there. Good evening to many of you who are students. And this is one of those rare occasions when we have a decent blend of adults, I mean, as working professionals and senior leaders of industry go. Ashish has already acknowledged many of them. And of course, students. The idea of the Prem Jain Colloquium was born about 2 months ago. Our intent at the Prem Jain Memorial Trust has been to awaken consciousness in the areas of sustainability over the last 18 months. We've been trying to see what we can do to shift the conversation or raise the quality of thinking in the larger context of greening India itself, and being therefore a supplement and a support to institutions like the IGBC, Shreyas, and others who are doing a commendable job of trying to see what they can inspire industry to be doing. But as this conversation is about, you will realize that without a larger ethic as an underpinning for the core vision of any organization that is dedicated to greening India, what can we accomplish in raising the level of such conversation among industry leaders or among young Indians? So you see, there is no discussion we can have on anything today in the last, say, 60, 65 days without our thoughts and our hearts going out to those millions who are walking the hard and hot tarmac of India's roads. Post-partition that scarred the nation's memory and consciousness in 1947, only about 10 million walked. Today, many more millions are walking. I don't personally have a number. I've been surfing the web to see if I could get to some number of the numbers of people who are walking back home. I haven't found one. And if there is somebody out there among the listeners who have anything like this, please put that up in the chat. While I will, of course, request JP Shroff and Shagato to see if they will want to add some value there. At the root of it all is the misery of having to make a living. If it was just living, they would all be happy staying home in their villages and smaller towns. That difference between living and making a living, as somebody wrote, I think it was Emerson who wrote that, makes them come to these faceless cities for an anonymous living with menial jobs that give them no quality of life. People like Shagato or JP Shroff and many other such leaders have tried to see if they can change that. This conversation is about how we can do things the way these two gentlemen have done in their own organizations to lead that spirit. Employment, as you and I know, is the single big challenge that has dogged India from about independence. The figures then were smaller, but the percentages were nearly the same. Today, the numbers are staggering. The middle class is fortunate. Young privileged Indians have a problem too, but the countless millions out there have a challenge which just can't match what this privileged middle class lot have got. And this middle class lot doesn't even touch 8-9% of India's population. I'm not going into the demographics or the sort of figures that pan out when you talk population in this country. I'll leave that for another conversation another day. And as the economy will now slowly reboot with the easing of the lockdown, we can begin to think of what such conversations on the new economy have to be about. What better way to start this colloquium than to have two professionals, one from the CII, as Ashish told you, this is a formidable man, and I've been in touch with him for some time, and I know what he can offer you today. And the other, JP Shroff, who has led the Kushal program under an industry body called CRIDAI. I was telling a young set of architects this morning that they can do nothing to earn a life or make a successful career if they did not have the skills that institutions like yours and leaders like you produce in India. What can I do if I'm any of this lot who are present now here today, who have the privilege of water, energy, and technology? If you remove these three things, our lives will be as miserable as it is for these migrants today. Jobs for the middle class and money for the very rich class, that 1% who are the investor kind of class in any country, depends on these workers who have been left in the lurch. I will get to questions on what these two gentlemen, these two leaders think this, of this scenario of the 90% economy, while I start with Shaugato on what his programs have done to produce over 500,000 jobs in the last 3 to 4 years. He will tell you more about that compelling story that he has got to share with you all. Shaugato, welcome to the Colloquium. Maybe you want to start with the origin of these ideas way back in 1986 when CII thought of coming up with skill sets and such, when India's population was about 50% of what it is today. And you might want to tell us of what you have been doing in the last maybe 5-6 years to bring up the trajectory on such opportunity for employment. And the last thing is this: after we listen to you, Shaugato, we will ask JP Shroff to see how he can tell us his story of how he and people in his team have led. Someone has got to mute. Yeah, have led to generating about 150,000 jobs, he says. I think it is JP Shroff who is not muted. Well, we'll come to JP Shroff a little after. To you now, Shaugato, what is that story which you have built over the last 3-4 years? Please tell us of what those numbers are, because the participants will begin to see you for what you represent as quantity after you have told us of that story. Shaugato.
Thank you very much, Hari. At the beginning, let me thank the Prem Memorial Trust for inviting me to this colloquium. And the topic is extremely important, particularly at a juncture like this when we see a little devastation and the pandemic affecting all of us, all over the world. Just to give a brief background before I get into it, the organization which I represent, CII, we call ourselves a developmental organization, not a usual association, because what is good for society and good for India, that is what we work towards. And one of the most important work has been our skills initiative, because the verticals we have, the skills runs horizontally across all the verticals, because human resource and workforce is ingrained in each of the sectors. The numbers, before I get into our work, I'd like to just expand on the challenges what we have. We have 474 million workforce in India. We have 8 to 12 million entering the working age every year. So there's a great need for us to generate employment and livelihood to meet the expectation of this young talent pool which is coming. And to that, we can't look at only India. We should be the provider of the talent pool for the whole world. We have seen the experience of the IT industry. There was nothing called IT in India when we started. And when we reached out and started marketing in the world, everybody said, "You're talking computer from the land of banyans." They were surprised. And we proved that we have the intellect and the ability to give a solution and the human resources which can provide that solution all over the world. Now for the skills, what we have been doing, we started the journey formally in 1986, where we started the need for recognizing talent. Because vocational education is the last resort. We felt that we have to draw talent into industry. Industry always faces the main challenges at the base level to get talent, be it a welder, be it a fitter, be it a carpenter. If you talk to industry, the first thing they will say is, "I am not getting this base manpower." All factories, you will find a sign on their door saying, "Fitter required, electrician required," etc., etc. So what we try to do is say that from industry, we have to create an ecosystem, because ultimately the talent pool is meant for industry. That is one. Two, it is very critical, the talent pool's quality and the need for us to do training, because the productivity of the talent pool impacts industry's competitiveness. So if I am to compete as an organization vis-a-vis similar organizations in the rest of the world, I have to produce quality products at a speed and cost effectiveness which will enable me to capture the market. So what we try to do is say that if you are a welder, you are just as good as the general stream education. If you are a carpenter, you are just as good. So back then we started what we call the CII work skills. So from industry, it is a competition across the main 32 trades we have, where we recognize the talent and we got industry to celebrate that, you know, the workforce we have, the welder or the fitter, see the quality. That journey led us to taking membership on behalf of India to the World Skills Competition. It's like the Olympics of the skills environment.
Was that, Swagatu, that you took them to the World Skills Council?
Pardon?
When did you take them to the World Skills Council?
So 2006, CII on behalf of India took the membership, and we started taking competitors. And in the second edition, 2008, we managed to get a silver medal. And thereafter, I'll come to the journey.
Sure.
And then there's a small film which JP would, I would request JP to play. One of the main policy interventions what we have done was incubate the National Skills Development Corporation. What we told the government was that the main thing in the skills ecosystem which is lacking is the role of industry, which is the recipient of the talent. So there's need of a PPP body which will work towards laying standards in each sector, laying the curriculum for training in each sector, led by industry. So when this talent pool, after the training and certification, go into industry, industry says, oh, you have been trained in this job role, in this level, and the understanding becomes very, very clear. It's a structured program. So as part of the NSDC, we got all other industry associations together. JP represents CREDI, which is also on the board of the NSDC. And we support NSDC on a number of initiatives. One of the initiatives being the formation of industry-led sector skill councils. So in each sector, getting industry together, to come together, to ideate what is the employment currently, what is the skill gap currently, and how do we bridge the skill gap and meet the industry requirement of the talent. So industry plays a great role in enabling this talent pool to be skilled as per their requirement. So, you know, it's a win-win situation. And
if you don't mind, Shagatu, if you can, you know, sort of take a quick step back and tell us how this conceptual framework that you had and the intent and such have translated in, let's say, the last 3 years, because we are looking today at the next, say, 12 to 24 months that need some very inspiring effort and initiatives to get us to see how we can perk things up for millions of people. That would help us.
Correct, correct. Yeah. So our skills, while on-ground skills initiatives, we impact around 1 million youngsters per annum. And through a number of delivery vehicles, I'll just expand in some of them. The last major delivery vehicle we created was in 2016, which was the CII Model Career Center. You are well aware we have employment exchanges in most of the districts. Unfortunately, they are quite defunct because a candidate goes, they register, and nothing comes of it. So what we advocated to the government was, you know, these youngsters are little clueless. They need a little guidance. They need your support. First, have an interface with the job seeker, the youngster, and guide him. So we said that once he comes, let there be a psychometric assessment of the candidate. Then a counselor talks to that candidate based on his result, what he is suitable for, what stream was he suitable for, and also have a dialogue that it may be that he's saying, I want to take up IT, but it could be that he's good for a hard trade.
Shaukato, what sometimes you take for granted because you're presiding over these things at large levels with procedure and protocols might be a little difficult for us all to understand. If you say that at the district level, you sort of told the government that CIA will begin to interact, you are talking now of approximately 600, 650 districts, or are you talking of about one half of that in these 10 states, the major states that count in India? How many districts is that in that CIA is sort of reaching out to? Have we lost him there? He seems to have frozen there. JP, can you respond to that while we get Saugata back?
I'm sorry. I'm very.
One moment. He's trying to get back there. Just one. There's something there. It's challenging. Okay, go on. Back to you, JP.
No, I think he's still there.
Sorry, Hari.
Yeah.
There was a power outage, so I.
Okay. All right. Go on. So
Apologies.
The question is, how does CII reach out? What is its organizational capacity that it can go to every district and do what you called of psychometric tests and such?
So
yeah.
We have 66 offices pan India,
Okay.
but this what I was explaining. The government of India has employment exchanges in all the districts. So
Right.
what we said was you have to revamp and enable interaction between the youngster, who is the job seeker, and the employer.
Right.
And when we did that, the government said, okay, we will convert 100 of the employment exchanges into what you are saying to be model career centers. And when they did that, they said, from industry, can you set up a few and showcase what you expect and what should be the perfect such intervention?
Sure.
So we started by setting up 3 major ones in Gurgaon.
I'll stop you there, Shaukato, and go back to what you said of how you mobilize and train and place 1 million people a year. Just tell us a little more about how you do that. Tell us how you do that.
So there are a number of interfaces, what we call the delivery vehicles we have.
Right.
One I was just explaining was the Model Career Center. We have 63 such Model Career Centers, which give career counseling of around 3.5 lakh youngsters. And over the last 3 years, we have placed more than 1,37,000 through this initiative. Similarly, we have the CIA Multi-Skill Institutes, which train around 40,000-50,000 youngsters per annum.
How many MSIs is that? How many multi-skills?
So we have 8 multi-skill institutes pan India. The hub and spoke, the bigger ones are the hubs, and the smaller ones are the spokes.
Sure.
And we are scaling it up to 12 such multi-skill institutes. We have actually just to brief you, the first multi-skill institute by CII was not in India. It was on behalf of the government of India in Kabul, Afghanistan.
Right.
Where we set up construction.
That's right. Interestingly, JP, that was to do with construction and skills.
Construction and electrician, etc.
That's right.
And we built capacity 2 years and handed over to government of Afghanistan, and they're running thereafter. See, the main thing what we feel is there has to be the main industry involved in anything you do. Ultimately, they are the recipients. And if you involve them at the very beginning, it will give you a very tangible impact of placement.
Okay.
So if we train according to industry, you will always get a higher placement.
How much do you get a support from government while I know industry will obviously support what you're doing because there is value for them, how much does government support you in terms of funds or reach?
The government of India, fortunately, has set up a dedicated Ministry of Skill Development.
Yeah.
With the idea that there has to be a common approach in skilling.
Right.
Of course, livelihood and employment at the end of it. And there are a number of ministries who are working in their sectors, like let's say Ministry of Rural Development.
Yeah.
You have Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation. You have Ministry of Roadways, etc., with their skilling scheme. But the main challenge has been in all of that is the pull by industry, because ultimately, if you don't do the training as per the industry requirement, they will go on taking people from off the street and doing the training, or taking people from the ecosystem and then again doing the training.
Shaukato, I'll sort of pause on you there and ask JP the same question. I know that in the last, say, 4, maybe 5 years, you've placed about 150,000 people in the construction sector, as you told me earlier. But you did most of it without the support from the government. How did you manage that?
Well, Hari, I need to go a little differently on this, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure.
I will take you through the journey part of skill development for the construction industry.
Sure.
Okay, when NSDC was formed and CREDAI was asked to give a proposal, I was given the onus of setting this proposal, and I went to Delhi with the proposal, and I was invited to make a presentation to 11 secretaries of the government of India in the North Block. Yeah. Apparently, I was alone there without a tie, and I had a similar person next door. He said, Mr. Shroff, you're in Delhi, you don't have anyone helping you out. यहाँ पे broker के सिवा काम नहीं होता है. मैं बोला भैया मैं तो अकेला आया हूँ और मैं जो है अकेला बात करूँगा.
Absolutely.
So I went in, and then of course there were these 11 secretaries of state, government of India sitting there. And they said, Mr. Shroff, you belong to the richest community from the construction industry, and you are asking for money to skill construction workers. We really don't believe that you need to be paid or supported, and therefore we don't see that we don't want to really grant you any kind of support. So I said, Madam, if you're the lady was the chair of the committee, and I told her, Madam, if you have decided not to give me money, I might as well go, because I do not want to waste the time of the seniors 11 people. So he tells me, Mr. Shroff, you're an arrogant man, but tell me, what is it that you have? What kind of space you have? What kind of building structure you intend building with the amount of money you're asking? Yeah. I said, Madam, I don't have a single structure. I do not want to build a single building, but I have a mandate from 400 members of CREDAI Pune who have agreed to make available their sites to do on-the-job training, because a construction worker does not see value for certification, because he's already so much in demand. He doesn't need a certificate to get a job. He cannot spare time and money because he's hand on mouth kind of situation. Ki paisa do, miss the work and pay for training. No, he's not going to do that. So I said, Madam, I have 400 members of CREDAI Pune offering their sites, about 2 lakh people working here. So they are as my target people whom I'm supposed to train. The CREDAI membership is ready. So I need the funds to help me mobilize and start this off. So she said, Mr. Shroff, but then why can't you pay for it? I said, Madam, the problem with us is these are all migratory workers. They are not belonging to any developer or any company. So therefore, nobody really wants to have the ownership and spend on their skill upgradation.
How much as money were you asking for, and which year was this?
Oh, this was quite a lot of money. We were asking for 150 crores. And this was early 2012, 11-12. But ultimately, they gave us a certain amount of money as pilot. They said, okay, this is the money we are going to give you for doing 20,000 workers in the next 2 years. I must tell you, we are recipients of 21 national, international awards for having trained 20,000 people before time schedules, also not using the money that they gave us. We were the recipient of the best NSDC partner award for maintaining the best kind of documentation. And of course, then Post that, of course, now we are all self-sufficient and we are not training people. So this is a small story of how Kushal really started. You know, I have two eminent chiefs of NSDC, Mr. Subbiah and Ram Durai. In fact, I must thank Mr. Ram Durai, who was the chief of NSDC that time, who picked on me and told the two sector skills council, that is construction sector skills council and also the painting sector skills council, that I should represent the construction industry on their boards. So fortunately, I'm on the boards of these two sector skills council and trying to make each of their skill programs very industry ready.
Yeah, if you've done about a tenth of a million or 15% of a million so far, how do you, scale this? So it means effectively that you've done approximately 20,000 a year. I mean, I'm just taking an average. How do you now scale this to something that's far larger at a time when people need self-confidence, they need confidence, they need livelihoods? You know, all the things that are happening just now in the grim battle that India has on its road to recovery.
So it's a very challenging thing. The problem with construction skills is aspirational. No, I would have a mason's son actually taking a job in a mall as a janitor, but he would not work as a mason because he did not see value. And there is something called marriage market in this people, that am I working as a mason or am I working in a mall? So these guys did not want to work for continue the trades or pick up construction trades. So we had a big challenge on convincing people into coming into upgrading their skills. But when we started in 2012, trust me, sir, over some time we had reverse migrations because we printed two kinds of periodicals. One was called Kushal Safal. Now, Kushal Safal spoke of success stories of construction workers with their pictures in Hindi. And we printed 20,000 of them and we sent them all over Maharashtra so that with the pictures of only construction workers, it did not have any picture of any politician, any Mr. Shroff. They were construction workers who had achieved some kind of skills and were very happy with the skilling. So we have had incidences where people have said that there has been reverse migration. People who did not want to come back to the construction sector have come back. So we have raised the aspirational levels of this and now people are willing to get skills. Initially, we had to actually coax them. Aao, padho, sikho, tumhara fayda hai. Now I have a line of people. The only issue is the funding and the issue is ownership and the on-the-job management of all the people when they are going to be trained. So that is
JP, of the many programs that you have launched so far, what has brought to you the most satisfaction?
So there are two parts that has been very, very, very interesting.
Personally to you.
Yeah. We tried women empowerment. We thought, that why should women carry the bricks and the sand? Why can't they do brickwork? And why do the men not carry the loads of the bricks and sand on the head? So that could be more efficient. Yeah. They could carry more bricks and the woman could do masonry. But unfortunately, I must say that the male chauvinism or whatever, they stopped work. They did not allow the women to learn, become masons. This was way back in 2014-15. Today, I'm very proud to say that we did one batch of 30 masons, about 9 mason ladies, about 9 months back. And we are now planning to do regular mason lady training in the cities of Maharashtra. So that is now happening. So that has been the most inspiring and very heartwarming activity that I was able to take up through social media.
Shaugat, have you had anything like that, which, some moment, a moment of pause, a defining moment where you met somebody and you suddenly realized that, hey, this is what I need to be doing and more of? And maybe you want to combine that with what you see the next 2 years to be in India.
So when I first entered this field, and we have to go on ground when we do the training.
Right.
And ultimately when we are giving the offer letters to these youngsters, be it the boys, be it the girls, be it the physically challenged, the impact we're able to do is amazing. And the goodwill that is created is also phenomenal. So that, positive energy from these beneficiaries has really impacted all of us, and it has brought people into the skills fold as a developmental initiative. What I feel going forward is uh, one of the main issues of employment and investment, attracting investment, two very critical things. India's workforce productivity has been a little lower than our competing countries. There's a need for reskilling and upskilling the workforce to make them higher productive. Two, if I'm attracting investment and with the modernization industry 4.0 coming in, we have to align our training to meet this requirement. I can't say that we don't have the workforce. Rather, it's good to prepare the workforce for such investment. And with the current scenario, we will see a lot of mechanization and automation. So that has to be
back to you, JP Shroff. If you said last that if there is something that is sort of slowing you down, not stopping you, it is this want of support, financial and otherwise. Can you define that? Here is a reasonably discerning audience of people who might, pick up the telephone and or maybe mail you and say that there is something that they can do. So what would you want?
No, so the most important thing that is the funding for training has to come from the developers, which is gradually coming because they see value in productivity. I must share a small story. I have a builder in Pune who called me up, and he's famous to be the person where to get a rupee out of him is considered to be a great job. He called me to his site and he said, "Mr. Shroff, come here." I was a little skeptical, went there. And he says, "Mr. Shroff, I've been observing the training going on his site. We were training about 100 people there. And he wrote me a check of 10 lakh rupees. And he says, I realized that the benefit that I'm going to get in terms of sheer wastage control and do it right the first time is phenomenal. He's a very big builder of Pune. He gracefully wrote a check of 10 lakh rupees. And when I told my members here that I got a check from so-and-so, they said it is an impossible fact that you will achieve. So these 10 lakhs of grant or money that he gave me is something I revere, and I tell the world I could also get money from Mr. So-and-so. I don't want to share names though.
Tell me therefore what you see the next year to be. I could have said 5 years, but I'm saying 1 year from here. What do you see? What is the support you will provide industry? And to me, that is a smaller question, a less significant question than what is it as benefit that you will offer to these migrant thousands or daily wage thousands?
So what I must tell you is, if for the benefit of all the developers are contributing 1% of the total cost of the project as cess, labor cess to the corporations, to a board called Building and Construction Workers Board. Now, these boards...
How much does that 1% mean in terms of lakhs of crores?
Wonderful. So in Maharashtra, there is something like 10,000 crores plus with the board unutilized. And we have the Supreme Court reprimanding the states for not using this money for the benefit of the workers. There is a stricture passed by the Supreme Court. The boards have been ineffective when there is money, because we filed a PIL saying that in spite of the money being there, why is it not being used for 28 of the benefits enumerated in the act of the board for the labor? So this is where we feel is the source, and therefore I must share a small story now. We had about 75,000 migratory workers in Pune from the CREDAI membership. There were much more, but I'm talking of the registered membership in CREDAI. And purely by coordinating with the board and the state government, that is Dilip Walse Patil from Maharashtra, the Minister for Labor, we were able to provide free meals for 27,000 people on a daily basis for last 1.5 months.
Sure.
The CREDAI, that is the team Kushal.
I'll stop you there. I'll go back to Shagato. I'm sure, Shagato, you also know that there is this 10,000 crore lying idle and in one state of the country. at CII, it's not like you will not be privy to that information. What do you think, and with the clout that CII sort of enjoys across the country and particularly in Delhi, what do you think you can do to see that such funds that are lying idle after having been allocated can be deployed and put to very good use in times such as these?
So I agree with JP. Actually, this fund has been lying in each of the states, and it is a welfare fund. So what we had advocated long time was that you use this fund for skilling and upskilling of the workforce. Give them the benefits and their children the benefits and get them into employment. That was one. Another small thing what we had talked about was allocation of fund under MREGA. It's a huge year-on-year allocation. What there should have been was, while you are doing the work through them, you also give a structured training so that after the end of a year, some of them can get certified and get into the organized sector. You can't go on. It's like giving the fish every single time. There's a need to teach the people to fish and then get them out and use that fund for new people.
Absolutely, JP Shroff, helping them or enabling them? What do you think we should be doing?
Obviously enabling, sir. Helping is going to be in cases of pandemic where they genuinely need to be supported. That is but human and necessary. But enabling to make them self-sufficient, to be able to fish instead of providing fish on a daily basis is the right way, as Sugato has spoken about. So that is what skill development is all about, making them industry ready, enabling. We have case studies, we have done complete documentation of how skilling has upgraded the wages of, we have a data bank of about 20,000 voice recordings where people have spoken about how their skill wages have increased by mere training from Kushal. Can't hear you.
Sorry, we have 5 to 6 just now. Let me again persist with you, Shaugato. I don't know if you want to sort of not answer this question. I'll leave it to you. What do you see between now and the next 24 months as the new emerging economy post this lockdown?
So, what we quite rightly, the migrant workers have gone back. And on the other hand, all across industry saying, including one of the main sectors JP is representing, we don't have the workers. How can we start?
Shaugato, if you don't mind, there are listeners who are saying that you need to speak a little louder.
Okay, so very sorry. What we are seeing that the main migrant workforce have gone back to their villages. On the other hand, all across industry, and KP represents one of the main ones, construction, each of them are saying, I don't have the workforce. How can I restart? So one of the things what we said to each of, we are speaking to each of the state government, and through the Ministry of Labor also we have initiated this, map the skill set of the migrant workers once they are back, find out the local industry requirement and just marry. So offer the vacancies which are there to the local people. One, if they're ready for it, fine. If there's a need for skilling and reskilling, industry will do it, but it can be funded. Like you have the construction cess fund, MREGA fund, it can be funded. The ministries have funds for industry to do their own training and keep them as a workforce.
I see that. Let me turn to JP. You know, there's one question that our Suresh, V. Suresh is asking both of you. Is it a fact, JP, to you now, is it a fact that the association of only certified, competent, skilled workers is not available in any Indian construction contracts? For instance, when you said there are these 75,000 people who are registered under CREDAI, you know what it means. That will be probably 20%, 30% of the total number of people who are working. So his question is, if you take a Singapore or an Australia, you know how the scenarios are. If we don't insist, he says, on demand side pressure, how do you expect supply side intervention for use of trained certified workers? Because if you don't get demand, your work is not valued and you don't get funds, and there is a cycle which is not virtuous.
So I must share a small story that is just yesterday. I had a developer in Pune send me a demand. He says, I am ready to fund the complete training of 300 workers on my site. They will be provided dormitory accommodations, the food also. Mr. Shroff, come and train them on my site. So this is immediate offshoot of the loss of migratory wages, and they have a RERA commitment of completing projects on time. So this is bound to happen. So, the local workforce will have to be reskilled, upskilled and cross-skilled to make them efficient to achieve the targets that are committed by them for the customers under the RERA regime. So it's a very interesting thing that's happening in the construction industry. They are now bound by a regime that is very, very documented and which there is very, very vibrant in at least Maharashtra.
Shogata, to you now, in 1986, 1990, 1995, maybe even 2000, a bulk of your work, successfully too, would have been in the IT areas, which is easier because they are knowledge workers of a certain kind. Turn to construction skills and you know the challenges. You know the kind of mobilizing that you have to do at the groundswell of districts and talukas and tehsils and mandals. You said you have 66 offices. Tell us how you're mobilizing and shall we say addressing the challenge that JP is talking about and what V. Suresh is also sort of articulated.
So one of the main work we have been doing is with the Ministry.
You have to speak louder, Shogata.
One of the main initiatives we have been doing is with the Ministry of Labor and Employment. They have the national register where all the skilled talent pool flows into, and all industry employers are supposed to post their requirement on that register. So we are gathering industry to populate that, to generate, because ultimately skills should be as per the industry requirement. I cannot train somebody and then look for a job. Rather, I should say, oh, this employer in this location needs this quantity of talent pool, and the training should be aligned to that. So that is something we are working very closely with, and we are launching on behalf of CII, we are launching a digital platform which will enable any employers to post their requirement, and similarly the job seekers.
You both talked about how we shouldn't be giving them fish, but we must see how we can help them to fish themselves. V. Suresh is writing, and here the bad news or the good news, whatever you would like to want to interpret it to be. The amount available, hold your breath, the amount available in the Construction Workers Welfare Fund with the central government is 31 lakh crores, belonging to 30 lakh construction workers. Your class 6 mathematics will tell you that it's about 10,000 per worker. The Ministry of Labor has decided to use this as relief fund for construction workers post-COVID. Is that the right thing to do? Do you agree with the government? And or do you think that there has to be some, shall we say, proactive, more comprehensive plan that will enable you all as leaders to be able to take some part of the fund and build such enablement and mentoring and facilitating?
So should I take it?
Yes, JP.
Yeah, so we heard the finance minister speak of enabling this kind of money for the migratory labor, and this is actually one of the key steps that they took, was in seeing that the labor were fed the 3 meals or 2 meals a day, which was a lot of money spent into their welfare, also getting them medically inspected. We did about 30,000 of people. Also mentally, they were unstable, so we got them all checked. So that was the fund that came from the government of Maharashtra welfare board. And yes, they would have to interact with bodies like CREDAI, which has about 12,000 memberships and deploying about 60% of the workforce that is there on the construction sector. So we are talking to them, and yes, they are very proactive, and they realize if there has to be a channel through which these benefits would go, CREDAI would play an active role. So we do see now a proactive approach from the government, whether it's the state government or the central government.
Sure. I'll ask you an allied question to you, JP Shroff, once again, before I come to go to Shogato. You have been a CREDAI person for a long time. You are now the chairman of the Indian Green Building Council. you and I know that if you have to have sustainability, there has to be a work ethic too. Tell me how, tell me honestly, how many sites have you visited? And I know you also run a company which has been into this for the last 50 years, where the working conditions of those in the labor camps, they call them labor camps, they could have called them concentration camps, are being taken care of on food or on decent drinking water and such? This is a question from Niranjan Khatri.
Yeah, so it's an excellent question. This was exactly a year back where Pune faced torrential rains, and we realized a couple of labor did die in that thing because of a wall collapse on behind which the labor hutment was built. So Pune particularly took up this challenge, and from this year onwards, we have instituted an award by a developer. So there are 5 categories: people with 100 people workers, 200, 500, 700 and more. So this is the first step that CREDA has taken, that each under health and hygiene, whether it's financial inclusion, whether it's women empowerment, whether it's creche development.
I'll stop you there. Is there a way that your construction company, when it's being conferred a contract by a builder, is asked to sign a covenant in a document, in your construction contract, in a way that you will have only trained, certified construction workers, number one, and that you will ensure that, such labor welfare and such are also taken care of? Okay, so, is that a possibility in a way that gets mandated is the question that V. Suresh is asking.
Yeah, so very good question. The whole issue is the availability of the skilled labor. So if I insist that all my contractors will have to deploy only skilled labor, he would say, "Saab, main karta hu, lekin labor hai kahan certified?" So
you can do it on a phased basis, right? 20% a year for the next 5 years as mandated across India.
That the size is significant. So I have been writing to the government of Maharashtra that even with my contractors in Pune, we have said that by the time you complete your contract, you must have 60% of your labor certified. Only then your final bill will be released. You understand what I'm saying? So if you give them that time frame, achieve 60 or 70%, because they are migratory labor. Therefore, I cannot call them 100% because some would have left. So 60% of their labor should be certified, and those certificates will have to be shown to me before his final bill will be raised. So this is a program that we have in mind.
I hope this is being recorded somewhere. Let's hope that, this can lead to some policy action. There are champions, policy champions like Suresh Vasudevan here right now. Let's hope that.
So we are also talking to the government with a similar thing, that all construction sites that for contracts from the government of Maharashtra, they should also have this as a mandate in their contracts, that before the final bill is paid for.
Right. We lost you there.
And only then the final bill. Yes.
Yeah, can you repeat that last part?
We are hoping that this could be.
No, we lost you there. Repeat that last part, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so we are also talking to the government of Maharashtra that for all government contracts, a similar mandate should be said that before you pay your final bill, the contractor will have to submit that 60% of his labor have gone through training and have been certified, so that there is a sizable labor force that we will have eventually in the next 5 years, where each contract will say that if you don't have skilled labor, you are not eligible to even quote for the work. This is a time-bound program that we have.
I'll leave that there. I'm hoping as a senior leader and someone who has been driving these things, JP Shroff, that you will do something about it by also joining hands with, with policy people at CII. Back to you, Shaugato. There's one interesting question that's coming up. If you're doing 1 million people, and I know you're doing about 16 or 18 trades, a question from one of the veterans and giants of energy in India is that as you go into this decade, the need for green jobs is going to become paramount. Renewable energy, energy efficiency, clean fossil energy, green finance, digitized solutions, blah, all of that. Is there any estimate of how many such jobs are needed? Do you have some idea of what that estimate is? What are the gaps? And how can you have a market-driven plan from CII, of course, with the government, to address these?
So, like you had mentioned earlier, from CII, we incubated and set up 11 sector skill councils, a variety, unorganized sector like beauty and wellness, furniture fitting, structured like healthcare. One of the things we did was the Green Jobs Sector Skill Council, which addresses this sector, one, green energy and green building. So we have members from renewable energy, we have members from green building, etc. And we feel that this sector will be one of the main focus areas for India going forward. And we can train talent pool for other countries also in such a sector. You're on mute,
You're
Hari.
on mute. You're on mute, Hari.
You're on mute.
Yeah. Can you tell us what you mean by this sector when you say this sector?
Green energy, green building. So all encompassing, be it solar power, be it wind energy, and be it green efficiency. So there's a skill gap study which is being done. I'm sorry, I don't have the figures right now. But
can you make a stab, a wild stab, a guess at what the number is? I mean, we'll not hold it against you. Yeah.
Just the solar power had a target of 50 lakh. The Ministry of Renewable Energy had 50 lakh in the next 3 years.
You mean 5 million solar technicians?
Yeah, correct. Installers and everything. Yeah.
JP Shroff, same question to you. I know you do a lot on the construction workers. Tell me how you can put a shade of green to that.
COVID has been an eye-opener for many of the industry leaders, for the ministers that are here in Maharashtra particularly, and we are talking to them. We have Mr. Aditya Thackeray, who is the Minister for Environment, and we have planned a Zoom meeting with him. So we do realize that built environment, sustainable built environment is the future of tomorrow. We only need to get this balance between cost and the cost of sustainable development to be enough, or at least incentivized, so that each developer doesn't shy away from creating environment that is absolutely the need of the hour. So that is very much happening. And therefore, I think there is no way out. The people are realizing this, developers are realizing this, and it is just a matter of time that the trigger would start off, and you would have almost all buildings which are going to be built as
I got you. Since both of you are, representatives of industry, shall we say, this lockdown has shown you how vulnerable you all are to this massive dependence on daily wagers and the lower skills, or whatever you want to call them, that run the engines of every business. How do you think industry will respond? And as representatives of industry, what do you think you ought to be doing in order to see that this vulnerability doesn't show up too badly, or that you adopt or bring in a more humane approach in terms of what you do with these people? For example, if you were to say that every construction worker who works with you gets a very basic salary of, let's say, 6,000 rupees to his family. It could be 5,000, it could be 10,000. That is, it ensures that education and health for their families are taken care of, and they earn after that. Is there something that you can do to bring in such a policy with people like, V. Suresh also up there, who can join hands with you and see that you speak to the government? Amount will not even be, I'm not going to do the math with you just now, it won't even be 1% of the GDP or the annual income of the country. About 1 lakh crore, 1 lakh or 120,000 crore, if I were to take, say, 5,000 rupees, and I took only 200 million people of both the agri families and these urban migrant families. What do you think we should be doing? Can you set such a policy where base salary of maybe 5,000-6,000 rupees is paid? Ensure dignity is restored to these families.
So, okay.
Go ahead.
So as I see of it, honestly, the base salary has not been an issue in the construction industry, because most of them get more than that. An average worker, a menial worker, gets about 500 rupees a day, which is about 15,000. So
if he does not work for 30 days, will you give him a salary?
No. So he does get, see, the kind of work pressures that we have, I can tell you that they have worked more than 30 days if they are ready to work for it, is the kind of timelines that each developer is working for. But presuming even if he does work for 20 to 25 days, he definitely gets 10,000 rupees, which is absolutely true. It's only that the complete continuity, and because they are migrant, they go away for 3 months. Therefore, the average wage comes down to 6 or 7,000 is where the real crux is. So there has to be a longevity in the way they get the wages, and that they are sustained and able to continue is a policy challenge that we need to address, and it is possible, of course, I feel.
Shogata, your response.
Yeah. So there is a coverage under ESIC for those who are registered under ESIC, be it organized or unorganized sector, where the employer contributes, employee contributes.
But that's a
and
fig
for
leaf. That's a fig leaf, Shogata.
No.
You know that. Let's be honest about it. Yeah.
I'll tell you. So if you do have such a case of pandemic, there is a provision for paying wages. Another thing, what we actually face is the contract labor, what we consider is in the unorganized sector. There is a need for labor reforms, which will enable industry to have a direct relationship with the, you see, they use a contractor, they pay a certain percentage to the contractor, and the contractor pays a certain percentage to the worker. If you have good labor laws, then there'll be a direct relationship between the employer and the worker, and there'll be no worries about continuity of worker or loss of wages in such a case. And to this
there's another fear. Shogata, there's another fear. You know what is happening to AI, to a whole lot of things that are coming in as machine learning and such. Is there research to show that such mechanization, one of them, a person called Girish is asking, is it going to threaten this larger workforce that we currently have, who are now going back to the villages? You see, there are two ways of looking at it. Okay. One is to say, okay, let them go back. If one half of the people do not return, do you think AI and ML and such things is going to sort of come in a bigger way and support industry, while these people will find quality of life, shall we say, and probably make a living decently enough in the hinterland itself without having to come back to the cities?
So we did a study called The Future of Jobs, which actually details the impact of 4.0. And there have been other studies similarly. What we see are the job roles currently, we will not see them in the next 3 to 4 years. They will all evolve. But there is a positiveness. The loss of jobs in some sector and some job roles will enable a growth of some jobs in the other sectors. It will nullify. And towards that, we should be prepared and start training the people.
I'll hold you there. I'll hold you there. Maybe you want to answer this question, or maybe JP Shroff wants to. First with you, Shogata. What are those alternative skill training capabilities that can be given to this massive population of workforce to keep them engaged and productive in their own villages or districts or small towns, so as to avoid social disruption because of unemployment that can come about with AI, ML, etc. This is coming from Girish again. To you, Shogata.
Yeah. So like I had mentioned, the only way is to map the jobs availability right now, because all industry is saying I don't have the workforce, and enabling and linking the talent pool which is there in the nearby villages or towns to these jobs. Facilitate this training if required through the available funds which are there with the government of India and under various schemes which are there, and give this scheme money to the industry. So they also get attracted, okay, I don't have to spend additional money in training them. I can take them, I will skill them, and they remain my employees. So that's one step.
He's trying to, JP, he's trying to bring in a balance between economics but then, in many of these cases, there is no economics. You just have to pay. And that's 1% of the GDP. So you come from a state which has got both Marathwada and Vidarbha, and you know the numbers of suicides that happen in both these regions which are drought prone. What would be your response, Shroff?
So the suicides are something that I don't want to get into, because it's something that has a lot of political connotations, and they are used very conveniently by the so-called leaders of our country.
Purely from shall we say?
But I must say that that there is no dearth of job opportunities, even if it be in any city, or the rural villages can be connected. So for example, if it is Pune, I can have Shirwal, Ranjangaon, all these small cities or towns or villages connected, skilled, as Sugata said, and get them to even the cities to work, or even the local areas. It's really possible. It's just that these mindsets should change, and the government should understand that this is going to be needed, that connect between the rural people and the job roles available there, and how can they be utilized, connecting them with the cities that are close by to their to their local areas. You are muted. You are muted.
Hari, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Every time I'm doing that. One of you can take this. I will leave it to you. There's a very young man, an architect student, shall we say, who is wanting to know. He's now in his final year, or maybe the pre-final just now. When he gets out, what should he do? Should he work? Should he, try and see if he can join someone like JP Shroff on the movement, that is, and work towards ameliorating, like they say, the poor? Should he work with the middle class and, try and find another job as an architect in other practice? Should he work with unemployed youth and try and see if he can inspire them into some direction and action? What do you think he should be doing?
Surya, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. In the development sector, it's the passion of the person.
Louder, please.
In the development sector, it is all driven by the passion of the person. So one, understand what you want to do in life. If you want to impact, please go ahead. All hands who can help will be of immense value. Two, if you want to, you have trained yourself for a certain job role. If you want to continue and pursue that,
sure.
That's also very, very important.
JP Shroff?
I think Subrata has very rightly answered that one. Yes, skilling is a passionate job. You cannot do skilling unless you're committed to it, and it needs a lot of involvement. And particularly where the country of ours, where skill development has really not been what you call structured, there is still groping as to how things are to be taken forward, particularly in the sector in which I work. So there is a lot of work, and there are people that we will need who are ready to contribute and get engaged. It's really, really a big opportunity in that sense.
For instance, Shagato, I mean, I know you also work with the construction sector. Let me ask you this. Every year we have about 35,000, maybe 14,000 architects who come out. We have 1 million engineers, as just now Visaresh reminded me, who are coming out. There are 1.5 million MBAs who are coming out from totally about 6,000, maybe 7,000 colleges of various sorts of disciplines. What can you do to utilize that infrastructure to bring in such learning construction at site, or whatever else that you can do to make those centers work for us all in terms of leveraging employment opportunity for the less privileged?
So one thing we have advocated is rolling out vocational education at school level. So government-run schools have already started that. There's a huge dropout at before 8th standard, because they don't see the value in general education. They need a job, they need employment. So why do you not prepare such talent pool to get into employment, which is of trades level?
Yeah.
Two, at the higher level, MBA engineering, you'll be surprised to know when we do the placements, the requirement is not of engineers. It is of the tradespeople. And right now, a welder may be earning just as much as an engineer from a general
That's right. But then you look at it. But you look at it.
So how do you inspire people to come into that? And one of the main inspiration has to be the parents of the child.
Fair.
They are the ones who push you into various education stream, because the child doesn't know what to do with his life. So counseling the parent as well as the child to fit into a certain job.
I'm beginning to realize that we have only about 8 minutes now, and the subject is so large. Look at this, Shagato. While you said what you said, again, V. Suresh in one of those little notes is reminding me, JP, to you too. He's saying, Well, we agree with you that there is training and skill accreditation for workers that is needed in the construction sector or in other sectors of industry that Shagata is addressing. But how about training for supervisors, for civil engineers, for architects on the job? You know that in most of these segments, there is a problem of employability, not of unemployment.
So
I'm talking even in the middle class.
Yeah. So let me just also take a little cue from what Sugreta said about the welder getting the same pay as an engineer, and share a small joke, if you don't mind, in this pandemic. So there was this doctor who kept and his wife kept complaining that the tap is leaking, and you have such great friends. Why don't you get a plumber to get it done? So after ringing up all his builder friends, finally after a couple of weeks, he gets a plumber who comes and repairs his tap, comes out after 5 minutes, sir, leakage band ho gaya hai, 700 rupiya dijiye. He says, why are you mad, man? You just went in and you came out and you're asking for 700 bucks. You see, I'm a doctor. I have to spend 10 minutes checking the reports, checking your pulse, and post that, even after that, people are not very happy giving me 700 bucks. So he quietly goes to the doctor and tells him, Doctor Saab, iske pehle main bhi doctor tha, ab plumber hu. So simply saying that these skills are so rare and they are so much in demand. So कहते हैं ना कि
Shaukato, you have maybe 2 minutes. I will ask you a question. Maybe you want to say no, refuse to answer this if you like. Do you see the current economic system where people like you and I, and that 1% of the people who earn all the money and have 90% of them work the way they do, is an equitable economy at all? Is there something, with all the years that you have worked, you know, and I know that if you say that you're doing 1 million a year, you're obviously meeting lots of these people who are in those segments.
You really look at it, most of it is capitalist driven, of course. And the good part is most of the big industrialists have earmarked tangible CSR funds out of their own pocket also. If you look at Azim Premji, if you look at the Tata Trust, etc., all of them are plowing back money. Some of them, their main earning is plowed directly into social intervention.
But tell me, what led to this long march, which is horrendous and which is scarring every one of us? We are all, in a certain sense, ashamed of this country.
Absolutely.
In the last 30 days. Tell me how this capitalism and that kind of donor support has helped us.
No, I would like to respond to this, particularly because we employ the maximum number of migratory labor. You see, there have been two things that happen with migratory workers. One, May and June, they go back to their villages to do plantations in the farm. So they are actually, they have two job roles, you know, as farmers, and once the farming is done, they come and work in the construction sector. So it's typical that these people go back in May to their own villages to complete the farming activities that they have set, and also for the children's education. So anyway, they were scheduled to go, at least 25 or 30% were scheduled to go as it is. And it's a regular feature with all the construction industry. We are fully aware that this happens. The second part was the fear of the pandemic. And particularly in a country, in the state like Maharashtra, where you are completely isolated and the near and dear ones are there in Bihar or UP are wanting them to come, it has triggered off this.
Short answer, JP. I want to only, you know, in maybe 2 sentences, tell us whether you believe that this economic structure that we have of 1% of them holding the wealth, 10% of people like us holding the rest of it, and 90% working for all of us is something that can be sustainable at all. And is there an element of ethic in that?
Don't you see that the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister are trying to mitigate this disparity by the schemes that they have come out? I think there is a lot of sense in what they're doing.
I hope so.
Though most of the industries are not happy with this thing, that is where they're heading for.
Yeah, we have.
The main thing is you have to understand the migratory workers are also self-employed people. A lot of them, be it your rickshawala. So ultimately, what the country needs is social security.
Agreed.
For all, be it in the organized sector, be it in the unorganized sector, which is there in developed countries. But can India afford it? We have this forum called Industry Trade Union Dialogue Forum, where we are trying to understand if we roll out social security for all, including unorganized sector, where will the money come from? There's so many streams where government allocates fund. Can we combine everything and make this available even to the gig worker, even to your rickshaw puller, etc.?
I got it. Okay, 1 minute for you, JP, to offer, if there is at all, honestly, if there is a message of hope and redemption for our youngsters across the board, from the middle class to the underprivileged.
So I look at India as one of the most promising countries, and I believe that the youngest workforce exists in this country. Yeah. So we are there to stay. We are there to become a 5 trillion economy. I am extremely buoyant about it. Hold on. The world is facing a crisis. It's not purely India. It's just a matter of time. Things are going to get into place. And with whatever the pandemic giving us opportunity in terms of industries, Japanese industries, or the Koreans, or the Americans coming to various countries, India is there.
What is that? What does all that mean to me if I am 21 and if I'm looking for a job?
Wait on, don't worry. Skill, hone your skill sets and become. कहते हैं ना, कर खुदी को बुलंद इतना कि खुदा पूछे तेरी रजा क्या है. Be good in whatever you do, and then you have nothing to worry. People will always ask you.
Shaugato, your last 1 minute. Shaugato, last 1 minute for you.
Yeah. So we have to prepare the youngsters with a clear understanding that the job is very important. You see what we have also done at the grassroots with various rural freebies, what we say.
Yeah.
They're not wanting to get into employment. We did a study in Chennai where we found that ultimately a household needs to earn only 2,500 rupees per month to really get by, because everything else is given free. We should not do that. We should not spoil the people and make them unemployable.
Right.
Get them skilled, enable them to earn their livelihood.
Right. Well, I think we've had a lovely conversation, and thank you so much for all those wonderful people who sent in those responses. And we sort of decided to make this a larger conversation with people like V. Suresh, Padmanabhan, Niranjan Khatri, and many others. Shahrukh Mistry is right now there on the group, and you will know JP Shroff of Shahrukh. And Shahrukh is, to me, known to be a person who is more humane than a person who is an architect. I found him to be remarkable when it comes to his empathies with that. Every third person in your city, Shaugato, you from Delhi. I know you all know that JP is from Pune. I come from Bangalore. And we all have the third guy, that you meet on the street to be living in a slum or in what is called an informal settlement, if you like. And he sent me this morning something about, this business of how we are all, in a certain sense, sort of ashamed of being Indian today in such a tremendously crisis-ridden time for India. If I were to take what JP said and you, in your own quiet, sober ways, said, Shaugato, there is something that is of hope and redemption that is possibly out there somewhere, not too far from on the horizon. Shaugato and I have been trying to see what we can do with the government of Karnataka to try and mobilize, train, and place about 100,000 people with the network of polytechnic institutes. And these are things that can be done in every state, I think. We must try and see how we can push many of these in a way that, those class 10 and class 8 dropouts can possibly make a living, more than just make a living, make for quality of life in a country that has so much potential. Thank you so much, both of you, for having brought us to a great start on this very first of the Prem Jain Colloquium. I'm sure we'll have more as we go along, and someday soon we will invite you both to be part of this colloquium on something else that is thematically interesting for the young Indian. All of us know that if you put 3 people there, 2 of them are well below 40. And all 3 of us don't count, therefore, just now in that kind of statistic. But we can mentor the process while they walk the ideas. Thank you so much once again. Thanks all of you, listeners, having been there with us. Thank you particularly to all the inspiring leaders out there who chose to find time and be with us and share reflections. We'll hear from you at the Prem Jain Memorial Trust as we go along. Thanks once again.
Thank you.
Sign off now.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so very much. Pleasure.
Pleasure. Dakta.